Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick.
The UK-based financial services company, which is expanding its base in Enniscorthy, an upcoming event which marks the International Day of Yoga, and how Wexford can build a diaspora network which would benefit the county both from an economic and a social perspective. It's all been discussed on this morning's edition of Southeast Radio's Business Matters. Good morning, I'm Karl Fitzpatrick, and thank you for tuning in. Later in the programme, Colóda McCumasky from Spiritual Earth and Madeleine Quirk from Wexford Chamber will be discussing the benefits which yoga can bring to a workplace, and Kingsley Aikens will be revealing his 4 steps to building a diaspora network. But first, let's get straight down to business. UK-based INDOS Financial has been operating in Enniscorthy since 2014, and the company has recently announced further expansion plans for its Irish office. Joining me on the phone now is the CEO of INDOS Financial, Bill Prew. Bill, we'll be discussing this announcement in more detail shortly, but what area of the finance market does INDOS Financial operate within?
Yeah, we're what's known as a depository business, which really came about as a result of the introduction of a European regulation called the Alternative Investment Fund Managers Directive. And the role of the depository is to effectively perform an oversight sort of role over alternative investment funds, so effectively making sure that they're being operated in accordance with the offering documents to investors and so on. So it's kind of in a way viewed as a sort of real-time sort of auditing function. It's not an audit, but it is kind of viewed that way in the industry.
And what's defined as alternative investment funds?
Well, I mean, there's two sort of main categories of funds. There's the so-called UCITS funds, which fall outside the scope of the AIFMD as it's known. So therefore, an alternative investment fund is any other sort of collective investment vehicle that's really only available to professional investors, but it's not really available to sort of the retail market, which UCITS funds might be. So it's any investment vehicle really where you're seeking to generate a pooled return on behalf of a number of investors that invest in the fund.
Now, just to get a further insight into the sector itself, what requirements specified by the Alternative Investment Fund Managers Directive must non-EU investment funds satisfy?
Yeah, well, really AIFMD regulates European, what's known as AIFMs or Alternative Investment Fund Managers. So AIFMD was really the sort of European response to the financial crisis and some of the sort of issues with funds around, for example, Madoff, etc. So first and foremost, the way for the regulators to actually regulate the industry of alternative investment funds is through the managers that are regulated themselves in Europe. So those managers could be domiciled in any European country. But they will themselves manage alternative investment funds, many of which in this sector are going to be domiciled in offshore non-European locations. So a typical profile might be the Cayman Islands, for example.
And who would be a typical client of INDOS Financial?
The majority of our clients to date have been UK investment managers, mostly managing non-EU domiciled funds. We do have some non-EU managers that are clients, for example, located in Switzerland or the US, but the depository requirements are more widespread in terms of how they apply to European managers of non-EU funds that are marketed in the EU.
So in 2014, INDOS Financial decided to establish an Irish base. But what brought you to Ireland?
Ireland for many years now has been a well-established location for fund administration. So the vast majority, I'd say probably 90% of the 50-odd funds that we provide these services to, the fund administration is already going to be done by one of about 15 different fund administrators that are located in Ireland. The kind of the principal experience you need of staff to do this depository activity is really fund administration, fund accounting, transfer agency type skill sets, and it was quite obvious to us when we were setting up this business that if you try to find those people in the UK, you don't generally find them here, because Ireland has had such a sort of a dominant role in the fund administration market for many years. So we're looking for people that have got that fund administration experience, and they typically are found in Ireland.
So what brought you to Ireland was our experienced base of staff, but what brought you to Enniscorthy?
In a way, it happened to be the place where we identified our first member of staff, and that individual worked in Enniscorthy. We did think long and hard about it. I think it's a very competitive market for this type of staff, particularly in Dublin. One of the advantages of if you like, the regions is that if people are sort of living in that local area, they don't want to do the commute up to Dublin. They're there for sort of work-life balance or family reasons. But typically, we've got a number of staff that we've built up over the last couple of years that have done their time, if you like, working for the bigger banks in Dublin, and they want to work locally. And so what it's meant for us is that we've been able to build a very good team of individuals that live locally, and they've worked with us to help sort of build the business. But as a result, we really haven't had any staff turnover.
Taking the Indos financial hat off a second and putting on the County Wexford hat, what do you think County Wexford needs to do to be able to attract more of the Indos financial type businesses to the county?
Well, it's a difficult question. I mean, there's obviously in the county, Wexford has there's one big bank, for example, that has a base there, and in the whole southeast region, there are other financial services employers. I mean, I think outside of the high street banks, we are the only financial services employer that I'm aware of in the sort of Enniscorthy. It's difficult. I mean, we have at times found it hard to hire in that location. To be fair, it has been difficult at times. So it's difficult to say what to attract. I mean, we had a relationship, and we found the IDA very helpful at the outset in terms of sort of promoting the business or supporting us or making introductions. In the area that we've built the business, there weren't any sort of grants available or anything like that, but which might have made it more attractive, but it hasn't frankly hindered our growth and ability to grow the business there.
The Education and Training Board, have you engaged with them in relation to maybe providing specific training courses that could take job seekers and provide them with the skills necessary to be able to work with a company like Indos Financial?
No, although we're always open to that. I mean, the one thing that we have done very successfully for the past 2 years through the Waterford Institute of Technology is taken, I think it's sort of third year work placement students in their sort of third year out work placements that they do, and that's worked very well for us. We are conscious that there's all manner of parts to the job that we have to do, and we are keen to have a steady flow of more junior staff that we can train up, and in a way we kind of view it as giving something back to society. There's a lot of people in the industry that have done very well out of the industry and have had good careers, but it is kind of supporting the juniors coming through the system as well.
Now, over the past 2 years, the company has gone from strength to strength, which has been highlighted by a recent announcement which plans to expand the Enniscorthy office. What is the projected outcome of this expansion?
Well, overall, I mean, we're still a relatively small company in the big scheme of things. We've got 15 employees across London and Ireland, although in Enniscorthy that's 11 individuals. I can see that's grown pretty rapidly. I mean, we started off with sort of one individual, and then for many months it was sort of 3, and over recent months it's grown quite significantly. I think really driven by, as our sort of reputation in the market has been cemented. We won an award recently, and all that sort of stuff helps clients, give clients and prospective clients confidence to appoint us. So it's really difficult to say how large that team will grow, but I can certainly see it growing by another 5 people over the next 12 months, maybe even doubling to 20 odd people. And
while growing that team, what type of staff will you be looking to recruit, and what specific qualifications or experience will you be looking for them to hold?
Well, typically, I mean, as I say, we are keen to encourage and train up some sort of, first jobbers out of the universities or degree level. It wouldn't necessarily need to be degree level, but generally I think if there's a sort of a relevant business or finance degree, it helps in this space. We've got some individuals that have got sort of part qualified sort of accountancy qualifications, but generally the profile is individuals that have got pretty good end-to-end fund administration.
Now, at present, all the talk in the media is about Brexit. Will the outcome of this referendum have any impact on Indos Financial as a whole and specifically on its operations in Enniscorthy?
It's a very topical question. I mean, we're watching it very closely. Our sort of from a positioning of Indos in the market, staying in Europe is clearly our strong preference, given that the majority of our clients are clients because they are subject to EU regulation. Having said that, if we're out of Europe, it's not lost on us that having an operation in Ireland could give us an advantage. I mean, we are regulated by the FCA in the UK, and we would need to seek a regulatory authorisation from the Central Bank of Ireland, but it actually does give us an option if there is an exit vote, but we're all hoping here that we'll be staying in Europe, frankly.
Well, if you've just tuned in, that was Bill Prew, the CEO of Indos Financial, and we look forward to watching the continued growth of their Enniscorthy office. Coming up after the break, we'll be finding out how business owners may benefit by practicing yoga, so stay tuned for that.
Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick.